The following is an original production of AZPM News.
For AZPM, I'm Mark McLemore, and this is Arizona Spotlight. Coming up, Tuesday, January 27th is the International Day of Holocaust Remembrance. In observance of this date, AZPM presents a harrowing tale of survival from the Children of the Holocaust series, produced by Laura Markowitz. Andrew Schot was just 11 years old when he and his sister hid in the fields of northern Holland to escape the Nazis. Schot passed away in Tucson earlier this month at the age of 94. Hear his story on this special edition of Arizona Spotlight. To better understand the purpose and the meaning of the International Day of Holocaust Remembrance, I spoke with Lori Shepard. She is the executive director of the Tucson Jewish Museum and Holocaust Center.
This International Holocaust Remembrance Day it's a poignant date because it will be the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, and it also really looks at what is happening today in our geopolitical climate. As we get further and further from the actual events of the Holocaust, one might feel that the work becomes less important. But my argument is that Holocaust education and the preservation of memory have never been more important. The work that we're doing is vital because it requires us not only to counter rising anti-Semitism, but also identity-based hate in all of its forms and nationalism. The lessons of the Holocaust that we teach, as told by survivors of that horror, they help us teach lessons on human rights, civic responsibilities, and critical thinking. We are using these narratives to demonstrate how societies can slide into genocide. And Mark, I'm not one to be a sky is falling, chicken little, but when you look at the 10 stages of genocide, which are a very specific way to look at how societies fall, we're in very scary times. And I think we have to own that we're in very scary times.
Holocaust denial is obviously a key element of anti-Semitism, and we all know that that is something that has risen. But there's a program that I've heard about called What You Do Matters that involves law enforcement, and I'd like you to tell me how you think that might be making a difference.
We at Tucson Jewish Museum and Holocaust Center are blessed to be part of a program called What You Do Matters. Now, this program has now entered into many states, but it was started right here in Arizona, something that I know we are all super proud of. In this program, in this educational program, local police cadets, as they're graduating the academy on their very first day, they've just gotten their badges, they've just gotten their duty assignments. They go through a really powerful 4-hour training. And again, as the name implies, it's called What You Do Matters. And it's to help them understand that the actions that they're going to take every day in the line of duty really matter. And so they go through this amazing program, and then it culminates in a tour of the Holocaust Museum and Study Center, and most importantly, it ends with them meeting a local Holocaust survivor. And by the time they leave with those survivors, there's not a dry eye, and they're asking to take selfies with the survivor and get their book signed, and it's an honor to be a part of their training.
So a few days ago, I was informed that one of our Holocaust survivors, Andrew Schot, had passed away. And I understand that you knew him pretty well, and I just wonder what you would want our audience to know about him.
Wow, so many things. I'm going to just say right now, Mark, if I can get through this part without crying, it will be a miracle. Andrew has an amazing, like many survivors, he has this amazing harrowing story. He is quick and he is funny, and he is resilient. And I know I'm still talking about him as if he's still here because he will always be here with me. And I'm going to hearken right back to what we just talked about, which is what you do matters. For years, Andrew has been our go-to survivor for that program. The reason is because Andrew knows, as a 25-year service veteran, first in the U.S. Army and later in the Air Force, Andrew knows what he's talking about when he talks with these cadets. He knows what service means. And he shares all of his story. And then at the end, he will tell them, you are going to see things and you are going to do things that are going to change you, that are going to affect you for the rest of your life. And then he says, don't be afraid to get help, just like I did. When Andrew came out of the Holocaust as a survivor, it wasn't something you did to go and talk to someone and get therapy and to work through it. In fact, at that time, many survivors were told, we put this behind us. Just put it in the past. We'll never talk about the Holocaust again. Andrew didn't do that. He was blessed in that somebody actually in the Army, he was recruited into the Army after they immigrated here to the United States, and he had somebody who recognized Andrew's going to need some help dealing with this, and he got that help, and it served him well for the rest of his life. And he's not afraid to say to these incoming cadets, these new officers, don't be afraid to get help just like I did. And I love that he is able to take his story and bring it into today and make a difference for the people he talks to today. And I have to tell you, there's a lot of great things about Andrew's story, no matter what. You really haven't lived till you heard Andrew explaining how to break an egg and suck the yolk out of a duck egg, which is what he did to survive for 2 years while he was in hiding in Amsterdam. So Andrew's story in and of itself is amazing. But what really stands out to me is how he recognizes and he was able to see how that story still matters today. Saying goodbye to him is very difficult for all of us. It's difficult for his fellow survivors, and it's difficult for all of those of us who've been touched by his wonderful humor and his tenacity. But also, I'm gonna say he had a little mischievous side, and I'm gonna miss that a lot.
That was Lori Shepard, the executive director of the Tucson Jewish Museum and Holocaust Center. Be aware that the following story contains details of the attempted genocide of the Jewish people and may not be suitable for all listeners. From 1941 to 1945, Germany's Nazi regime murdered 2/3 of Europe's Jewish population. Of the 6 million Jews who were victims of the Holocaust, an estimated 1.5 million were children. Against all odds, some of these children did manage to survive. Children of the Holocaust is AZPM's Living History Project, produced by Laura Markowitz. Beginning in 2022, Markowitz interviewed 20 child survivors who were living in southern Arizona. 5 of them have since died. This is an excerpt from the story of Andrew Schot.
Andrew Schot was born in Amsterdam in 1931. 2 years later, Hitler rose to power in neighboring Germany.
I was a happy-go-lucky boy going to elementary school. And in 1940, right after I turned 9 years old, the Germans invaded Holland. The persecution of the Jews started And I didn't even know I was a Jew.
He didn't know he was a Jew because he wasn't raised as a Jew. His mother had a Jewish father and a Gentile mother. Andrew's father was a secular Jew. According to the Nuremberg race laws, anyone who had 3 or 4 Jewish grandparents was considered a full Jew.
My family qualified, except my mom, as a full-blooded Jew. The Germans went with trucks through the streets of Amsterdam and rounded up Jewish men of working age. My brother ended up at Auschwitz. He was 8 years older than I am.
They never saw him again. And Andrew's oldest sister had been working as a translator in Belgium when the war broke out. And they never heard from her again and still don't know how she died. Now it was just Andrew, his parents, and his sister Mimi, who was 6 years older.
And then things, started to get worse. The teacher gave me an envelope to take home, but inside was a piece of cloth with 2 yellow stars on it, and a note that said that I was to wear one of those on my outer garments on my left chest.
Failure to wear it was punishable by death.
Then they started banning all Jewish kids from public schools. And they took one small school in Amsterdam, I don't remember the name of it, but became known as the Jew School, and that's where I met Anne Frank. Of course, she was just a girl then. She wasn't famous. She was a little older than me, about a year and a half, but Anne was what we'd call today a tomboy. She didn't play with dolls or anything. She played in the streets soccer with the guys. And then things got worse and worse and worse.
Jews were banned from hospitals, parks, theaters, and stores.
In each neighborhood, they took one mom and pop store and allowed it once a week to close early and then open up again and sell to Jews. My mom took me with her, and when we got there was a sign in the window, "No Jews allowed when humans are on the premises."
Andrew's father was Elijah Schot. Before the war, he had been a gymnastics instructor. One day, he received a postcard in the mail. It ordered him to report to the train station for what the Nazis called relocation.
By then we knew you're going to the camps. He looked at that and he said, "Well, they already got one of my sons and one of my daughters. I'm not going to go."
He went into hiding.
My dad would come home on weekends to have dinner with the family. Well, that didn't work out too well because after about 2 or 3 weeks, on Sunday afternoon, he was home for dinner, and I went outside to play with my friends, and 4 men in uniform showed up at the house, and they were inside, and they came back out with my dad. So I went over there to talk to him, but they wouldn't let me near him. Those guys were all bigger than him, much bigger, and he looked so puny between those 4 guys. I watched him walk down the street, and that's the last time I saw my dad. Mom said, "It's time for us to disappear."
She put a few necessities for each of them in paper bags. When they left the apartment, they hoped that people who saw them on the street would assume that they were just carrying groceries.
We took a suitcase, everybody knew what we were doing.
She led them to an abandoned house on a canal.
There's no water, no heat, no toilet facilities. We weren't the first ones up there. There were others up there that were relatives of mine, but we were the only kids. So my sister turned to me, she said, "This is not going to work." I was 11 by then. So she talked to Mom. She said, "Why don't you let me take Andy to the northern part of Holland, where I used to go to, where she went to school?" She said, "We can live there among the farms." She talked Mom into it. We went to the Amsterdam harbor that night. So she talked one of the captains of the freighter to take us with him to Friesland. It's the northern province. When we got there early the following morning, she had it all planned out. The farms there were pretty well scattered, and so we would find a barn and sleep upstairs on whatever was there. We would get up early because we did not want the farmer to get into trouble, because hiding Jews was punishable by going to the camps himself. What we would do, we watched where the farmhands went to work in the fields, and they climbed on a horse and a wagon. So we just followed the wagon with the most workers on it. And when they got to the field, they got out and went to work, and we stayed with the wagon. And we watched out for German patrols. And they were easy to spot because in Holland, it's below sea level and very flat, except for the highways and the roads they build up on dikes. So you could see a vehicle, a long ways off. And if they were motorized, we knew they were Germans because they're the only ones that had gasoline.
When a patrol came by, they would pretend to be field hands. They would move things in and out of the wagon and look busy. At the end of the day, they trailed the wagon back to the farm. Andrew says that was the most dangerous time because the Germans paid a bounty to Dutch people who informed them about hidden Jews.
We could not count on all of them being sympathetic. So we leave the area. We never spent the night in the same area we spent the day. And then we'd start over again, looking for a place to sleep. And we got away with that for some time.
Every day they scrounged for food. They picked up scattered grain that had been left for the animals. Andrew says they blew off the dust and ate it raw. They hunted for birds' eggs in the ditches. They ate those raw too. And they also ate sugar beets from the fields.
One night, we were looking for a place to sleep. It had been raining. It was dark outside, and we were walking through the fields. All of a sudden, my sister grabbed my arm and squeezed. That was our signal. If you thought of any danger in a wet, level country, you don't want to say shh or stop, that you can hear that a mile away. So we stopped, and she whispered to me, she said, "Look up ahead. There's a caravan up there." We could see the outline of trucks. And at the head of the column, we could see some glows and some laughter. Evidently, we had come up on a German convoy taking food and stuff like that to Germany.
The soldiers were taking a smoke break. Andrew turned to leave, but Mimi wanted to see what was in the trucks. They quietly climbed the embankment.
A typical military truck with the canvas over it. I went to the back, and I went underneath that canvas with my hands, and I got a hold of something, but I couldn't get it out. The canvas was too tight. And I kept trying, and I had a suspicion of what I had. And I really wanted that. And so my sister came over, and she says, "They're breaking up. Let's get out of here." I said, "I got a hold of something. I can't get it out." So she pulled on the canvas, and it finally came out. And then we turned around, and we could hear footsteps. So dummy us, that hill we had so carefully climbed upon, we thought we could just walk down. And of course, the first step we took, we tumbled head over heels and ended in the drainage ditch. And it had about a foot to 14 inches of water in it. And I started laughing, and my sister didn't think that was the thing to do, so she grabbed me by the back of my head and pushed it under water. And when she let go, I realized I better be quiet. And we laid there until the trucks moved out. Following morning, we took inventory of what we had. Well, I had a wheel of cheese, and my sister had a bag of coffee beans.
Coffee beans were useless to them. They had no way to brew it, and they didn't drink coffee. But Mimi knew it was valuable, and she decided to try to trade it for something they could use.
So the following day, she borrowed a raincoat from one of the farm workers. She could have talked him into giving her the farm, but she was a pretty girl. She put on that raincoat and put that coffee underneath, and she took me to a field and put me by a haystack, and she told me to stay there until she got back. And she went to the city. After she left, I got scared. What happened if they caught her and I'd be there without her, and I didn't know what to do. So finally, late afternoon, she came back, and I said, let's make a deal. We're not playing this again. I said, we don't separate. And she agreed to that. People ask me, hey, that sounds like fun, great adventure. Well, we lived like that for 2 years. We didn't know what was going on in the world. We were completely isolated. We saw planes go over back and forth. So we knew the war was still on. We had no way to shower or anything like that. And the drainage ditches were not very clean water. I wore shorts because in home, kids under 14 did not wear long pants. They had no spare clothing or anything like that.
He and his sister struggled with cold and hunger and rain, and with the ever-present fear that if they were caught by the Germans, they would be shipped off to the death camps.
After 2 years, we made a mistake. We'd been messing around looking for a place to hide, and then we finally found a barn, and we went inside, and we just went up the ladder, and right by there was straw. We just conked out. Well, the following morning early, I'm a light sleeper. I still am. I woke up to a strange noise, and then I noticed there were over a dozen other people sleeping there. And you don't get away with that. Somebody's going to collect the bounty. So I got to those doors, I opened them up, and I saw 3 German Army Turks coming right at us. So I turned around, got to my sister, and I said, let's get out of here. They're coming. We started running. I don't know why. Where are you going to go? Then the gunfire started. And I looked over my shoulder where my sister had been running, and she was no longer there. All of a sudden, something hit my leg, and I went down. I laid there, and I looked at my leg, and there was a little bit of blood, but not much. But then I looked right into the barrel of a rifle of a soldier standing there, and he took me to where those trucks were. And then after a while, the gunfire stopped. I was devastated by that because had they shot my sister.
Andrew was 13 years old when he was captured by the Nazis. He was taken to a German processing camp, Westerberg. From there, he and the other prisoners were marched to the trains that would take them to Mauthausen concentration camp.
I looked between the cattle cars. There was another platform and another train, and that platform had nothing but women on it. And all of a sudden, I saw my sister. And man, I was so happy, so I hauled out as long as I can. But she didn't hear me, and by the time I could haul her again, the guard had hit me in the back with the rifle butt, knocked me down. They put us in those cattle cars, and they put us in there so tight, you couldn't move, even reach up and touch my nose.
The Allies had bombed the railhead at Mauthausen. So Mimi's train was sent to Dachau, and his train was headed for Bergen-Belsen. But the last 2 cars of the train were dropped off at Papenburg, and Andrew was in the second to last car, so that's where he ended up.
Papenburg, slave labor camp. It was miserable. They put me in the first barracks. They just opened the door, shoved me inside, and closed the door. And I remember sitting there all night and thinking, where's my sister? Where's the rest of the family? Why am I here? What did I do so wrong that I deserved it? Our camp commandant was an SS officer that had been wounded, had an artificial leg, and he carried that little dagger, and he liked to carve on prisoners.
For 11 months, Andrew was forced to do hard labor.
We knew there had been an invasion because all of a sudden, we found an increased amount of airplanes going over. Gunfire became closer and closer, and then a tank came through the gate. We were liberated by the British.
Andrew weighed 79 pounds. He was sent to recover at a military hospital. It took months to get up to 96 pounds, and then they sent him back to Amsterdam. He was 14 years old. He found his mother and grandmother living in their same apartment. 2 weeks after he returned, an ambulance brought Mimi home.
She had 11 surgeries on her back. She's still alive. She's 97 years old. She will not talk about her time in the camp.
Andrew, Mimi, and their mother emigrated to the United States. It was 1951. He served in the U.S. military for more than 25 years, and then he retired to southern Arizona. For decades, he didn't talk about what happened to him during the Holocaust. But today, he tells his story in schools and to community organizations. He thinks it's important.
I think the kids need to know about this. They need to know how dangerous certain things can be, because people have forgotten it. They just see it now. There's anti-Semitism is, and if it isn't the Jews, it's some other. It never stopped. Why do people have to be that way? There's enough on earth for everybody. All we need to do is get along.
For Arizona Spotlight, this is Laura Markowitz.
Andrew Schot passed away in Tucson on January 11th, 2026, at the age of 94. The complete interview with Andrew Schot is available on the Children of the Holocaust page at azpm.org. Thank you for listening to Arizona Spotlight. This show is a production of AZPM and is posted weekly at azpm.org. The production engineer is Jim Blackwood. Production assistance by Sarah Ariano. I'm producer and host Mark McLemore.
This has been an original production of AZPM News.